Oh, check it out. Like a little black bear on the side of the hill. Let me get it settled. That thing just stood up like you and I would just stand up. Look at that. Dude!
A remote forest, an elite research team, advanced tracking technology, a mission to uncover the truth behind one of the greatest mysteries of all time. At first, the expedition seemed routine. The team of experts, armed with high-tech drones and thermal cameras, combed through dense wilderness in search of evidence. For days, their efforts led to little more than scattered animal remains and eerie silence. But then, the silence broke. Unusual footprints, a massive handprint embedded in the mud, strange claw marks on trees too high for any known predator to have made. Something was out there, watching them. And then came the sounds. What they recorded in the dead of night would change everything. Before the team could fully process what they had uncovered, the expedition was abruptly shut down. Authorities stepped in without warning, confiscating evidence and ordering them to leave immediately. What did they find that was so disturbing? Why did the government intervene so quickly? The answers may be more unsettling than anyone expected. The forest that watches. The team set out into an undisclosed, heavily forested region known for its eerie legends and strange sightings.
Not hearing any responses, but it's definitely eerily quiet right now.
They were armed with cutting-edge technology, drones, thermal cameras, and seismic sensors, all designed to detect movement, heat signatures, and disturbances in the environment. At first, they found nothing. Days passed in near silence. The only sounds were those of the forest, the wind rustling through the trees, the distant hoot of an owl, and the crunch of leaves under their boots. Then, things took a shocking turn. Their equipment, which had been eerily silent, suddenly came alive. Heat signatures flickered on the monitors. Something, or some things, were out there, and they were watching them. Signs of something inhuman. It started small with scattered bones and the remains of animals that were ripped apart in a way no known predator would leave them. Then came the tracks with massive imprints in the soft earth, far larger than any human foot, yet eerily similar. And then, the handprint. Not just any handprint, a massive one. Long, powerful fingers pressed deep into the mud, unmistakably non-human. It was the kind of evidence that should have been a game-changer, a historic discovery. Instead, it filled the team with dread, because alongside it were knuckle prints. And those prints, there were two different sets. Whatever they were dealing with, there wasn't just one.
Yeah, look at that.
It was at least twice the size of my hand, maybe bigger.
Oh my God.
Wait,
Is this two different handprints?
There were two sets of these, so there seemed to be two of them.
Oh, wow.
Drones spot something strange. Determined to close the gap between themselves and whatever was out there, the team deployed a drone equipped with heat-sensing cameras. They had spent days searching for any sign of movement, and now, for the first time, the equipment picked up something unusual. A figure emerged on the screen. It was large, moving swiftly through the dense forest. At first, it was little more than a shifting shadow, slipping between the trees so quickly that it was almost undetectable. Then, as the drone adjusted its focus, the image became clearer. Something was walking upright. Its movements were smooth, deliberate, almost calculated. It did not lumber like a bear, nor did it move with the hunched posture of an ape. This was different. It was fluid, almost too controlled for a wild animal. Before the team could lock onto it, the figure vanished. One moment, it was in the frame. The next, it was gone. No known animal could disappear like that. Even the most elusive predators, mountain lions, wolves, or bears, would have left some trace of their movement. But this? It was as if the forest had swallowed it whole. The team, now on high alert, pushed forward. Every rustling leaf, every snapped twig, sent waves of tension through the group. The deeper they moved into the wilderness, the stronger the unease became. And then, the sun dipped below the horizon. Darkness fell over the forest, and with it came an eerie silence. Night had arrived, and with it, so did something else. Nightfall. The fear sets in. The darkness brought a new level of terror. Ronnie, one of the team members, moved cautiously through the thick trees, his flashlight cutting through the inky blackness. The forest seemed to swallow up sound. No insects, no birds, no movement. Just silence. Then, the drone operator's voice crackled over the radio, warning them of something nearby. Ronnie froze because the thermal camera was picking up heat signatures above him. Whatever it wasn't on the ground. It was in the trees, and it was something big. The team scrambled to pinpoint the location, but just as quickly as the signature appeared, it was gone. The silence returned, and that's when they found it. The kill site. Lying in the snow was the carcass of a freshly killed animal. Its body was twisted at unnatural angles, and its bones shattered as if they had been snapped with immense force. The team had seen the aftermath of predator attacks before. Bears, wolves, mountain lions, but this was different. This was something else entirely.
Come across remains of animals in the forest before, but nothing like this. And the fact that this is right in the same area where Bryce got this thermal image on the drone, I'm confident this is Bigfoot.
There were no signs of a struggle, no claw marks or bite wounds consistent with known animal attacks. The way the body had been torn apart suggested something much bigger, much stronger had been responsible. As they examined the remains more closely, they noticed something even more disturbing. The bones had not just been broken, they had been cracked open intentionally. The breaks were clean and deliberate, as if something had pried them apart to access the marrow inside. This wasn't just an act of survival, this was something calculated, something methodical. It wasn't just hunting, it was feeding, and that wasn't all. Near the body, partially buried in the frozen ground, the team made another chilling discovery: tools. These weren't remnants of human activity. The objects were crude, but unmistakably crafted with purpose, their edges sharp, their surfaces chipped in ways that suggested deliberate shaping. They were made from volcanic glass, a material known to have been used by early humans for cutting and hunting. The realization set in like a cold weight in their chests. Whatever had killed this animal was not just a predator. It was intelligent, and it was still out there. Authorities step in. The discoveries were mounting, and so was the tension. The team was convinced they were closer than ever to uncovering something extraordinary. But before they could make their next move, everything stopped. The expedition was shut down without warning. Authorities moved in. Equipment was confiscated. The crew was forced to leave immediately. There was no explanation, no negotiation, just a command to leave. Why? What did they see? What did they find? And more importantly, what were they not allowed to tell the world?
Ooh. Hey, look at that.
What are they hiding? 3 weeks later, something even more shocking emerged. Bryce, one of the crew members, couldn't let it go. While the rest of the team packed up and moved on, he stayed behind, combing through hours of data and scanning every bit of information they had recorded. And what did he found? Well, let's just say it changed everything. The audio evidence they didn't expect. While reviewing the recordings from the expedition, Bryce sifted through hours of ordinary forest sounds, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and the occasional crack of branches. It was tedious work, but something compelled him to keep going. Then, buried deep within the audio archives, he stumbled upon something chilling, something that should not have been there.
Needless to say, they picked up all kinds of sounds, most of them birds and small animals. But after a while, I was able to find something that really captured my attention.
A voice. But it wasn't just any voice. It was a deep, guttural sound, barely audible at first, but unmistakably real. It was faint, yet clear enough to send a wave of unease through him. The sound didn't match anything he had ever heard before. It was too structured to be the growl of a predator, yet too primal to be human speech. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a person. It was something else. At first, he tried to rationalize it. Perhaps it was just interference, some distortion caused by the wind or a distant echo bouncing through the valley. But as he replayed the recording, he noticed something unsettling. This wasn't just a random noise. There was a pattern. The voice carried a rhythm, a cadence, something deliberate. It did not sound like the aimless howling of a wolf or the chattering of nocturnal creatures. Instead, it seemed to form words, as though something out there was trying to communicate. And if that was true, then this was more than just a sound. It was a message.
Sounds like a human voice to me. And to me, this is a Bigfoot vocalization.
A linguist analyzes the unknown. Unwilling to make assumptions about what he had uncovered, Bryce decided to seek expert analysis. He reached out to Dr. Ronald Cosper, a highly respected linguist known for his expertise in rare and ancient languages. If anyone could decipher the strange audio recording, it was him. After carefully analyzing the recording, Dr. Cosper confirmed that what Bryce had captured was not just an unexplained sound. It was structured communication. The voice carried distinct phonetics, rhythm, and even syntax. This was not a random series of noises or an animal's instinctive call. This was language, deliberate, organized, and meaningful. But that wasn't the most unsettling part. There were two voices. Two distinct entities were communicating. The first voice appeared to utter something that sounded like wave flat. The second responded with cumber. The exchange was brief, yet undeniably structured. The words weren't familiar, but they had the unmistakable qualities of an intentional dialogue. Were these names, commands, a warning? No one could say for certain. Dr. Cosper, however, was convinced of one thing. These were not random grunts or animalistic vocalizations. They were words, perhaps fragments of an ancient or unknown language, possibly belonging to a species that had remained hidden from human discovery. And if they were capable of speech, that meant they were not just surviving in the wilderness. They were thinking. They were learning. They were something more.
I got a flash
Of eye shine.
peeking around that tree right there.
A species that shouldn't exist. This changed everything. For decades, people have debated whether Bigfoot was a primitive ape-like creature or something else entirely. But now, there was evidence, actual, tangible proof that these beings might not just be animals, but intelligent entities capable of thought, strategy, maybe even culture. What's the big secret? At this point, the mystery was no longer just about Bigfoot. It was about something much bigger. Why would the government step in and shut down a reality show expedition? What was so significant about Bryce's discovery that it had to be buried? If all they had found were a few strange footprints or blurry thermal images, why take such extreme measures? The simplest explanation is that authorities wanted to prevent mass panic. If the public learned that an unknown species, one potentially as intelligent as humans, was lurking in the wilderness, the reaction could be unpredictable. But what if the reason for the cover-up was something deeper, something they didn't want us to know? One theory suggests that Bigfoot is not just an undiscovered species of primate, but a relic of an alternate evolutionary path. A species that, instead of going extinct like the Neanderthals, Denisovans, and Homo erectus, found a way to survive by staying hidden. Throughout history, multiple intelligent primate species coexisted. Modern humans were not alone in their journey through evolution. What if one of these offshoots, one that was smarter, stronger, and far more elusive than the rest, never disappeared? What if, instead of competing with early humans, it simply learned the greatest survival tactic of all? What if it learned that the only way to avoid extinction was to disappear?
Ronnie, what was that?
I don't know. I've never heard anything like that.
The tools that change everything. The discovery of volcanic glass tools only added to the growing mystery. These were not just random stones or natural formations. They had been shaped, sharpened, and crafted with purpose. The presence of such tools suggested something far more profound than the existence of a simple, undiscovered animal. Early hominids, our ancient ancestors, were known to create tools from volcanic rock. They fashioned sharp blades, cutting instruments, and even primitive weapons to hunt and survive. These tools were a hallmark of intelligence, a sign of a species that was not only adapting to its environment, but also actively manipulating it. Now, Those same kinds of tools were being found deep in the wilderness, in locations tied to Bigfoot sightings. This was not an area previously known to contain evidence of early human settlements. The tools did not belong to modern humans. If these creatures were making tools, then they were doing far more than just surviving in the depths of the forest. They were thriving. They were adapting, learning, and possibly teaching their knowledge to others. And that raised an even more profound question. If they had the ability to create and use tools, could they also have a society? Could they have a culture, one that has been developing in secrecy, far from human civilization, for centuries? The bone-breaking discovery. The evidence uncovered by the team did not end with footprints, tools, or eerie vocalizations. One of the most disturbing discoveries came in the form of the way animals in the area had been killed and consumed. The remains found scattered across the expedition site were unlike anything they had encountered before. At first, this detail might seem insignificant, but in reality, it points to something far more unsettling.
Takeaway from this bloody mess could be that Ronnie found a rather large bone which could unlock a critical clue.
Holy crap.
This kind of bone-breaking behavior is not random. It is a known practice among early humans. Marrow was a valuable nutrient source, rich in fats and proteins, and was essential in human evolution. Early hominids learned to break bones to extract them, giving them a survival advantage that contributed to their cognitive development. The ability to recognize marrow as a food source, break bones efficiently, and extract its contents was a clear sign of advanced problem-solving skills. If these creatures were exhibiting the same behavior, it meant they were not just scavengers looking for an easy meal. They were making conscious decisions about their food, understanding its value, and using deliberate techniques to access it. This level of intelligence raised a much larger question. If they knew how to process food for survival, what else had they learned over time? Could they hunt strategically? Could they plan and work together? And if their intelligence was on par with early humans, then what other abilities were they hiding? The Vanishing Act. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding Bigfoot has always been the same question. Why do we never find their bodies? Despite countless alleged sightings and discoveries of footprints, there has never been a confirmed carcass, skeleton, or preserved remains that would undeniably prove their existence. Even stranger is the lack of tangible evidence beyond footprints, scattered bones, and occasional vocalizations. If these creatures are real, why do they leave behind so few traces? Many theories have been proposed over the years. Some researchers believe that Bigfoot may have developed secretive burial practices, disposing of their dead in ways that prevent discovery. Others suggest that their remains decompose quickly due to the dense, damp conditions of the forests they inhabit, where scavengers and natural decay can erase physical evidence in a matter of days. But what if the answer is even more unsettling? If these creatures are truly intelligent, if they have survived undetected for centuries, then perhaps their elusiveness is not accidental. Maybe they are actively avoiding us. Perhaps they know we are looking for them and they don't want to be found. And if that is the case, then there is another question we need to ask. Why? Could it be that their survival depends on secrecy? Could it be that revealing their existence would put them at risk? And what if, after all this time, the government has known this all along? The ecosystem that keeps Bigfoot hidden. The area where the team conducted their investigation was not just an ordinary forest. It was a vast and nearly impenetrable wilderness, an unforgiving landscape of towering trees, steep valleys, and rugged mountain slopes. The sheer remoteness of the terrain made it nearly impossible to navigate, let alone thoroughly explore. If a species had adapted to live here, it could remain undiscovered for centuries. And maybe that was the point. The team theorized that Bigfoot was not just surviving in these harsh conditions. It was thriving. Every aspect of the landscape worked in its favor, allowing it to remain hidden from human discovery. The deep valleys provided shelter from prying eyes, offering natural protection against harsh weather and intruders. The rivers and streams served as a steady and reliable food source, allowing the creatures to move through the terrain without having to venture into populated areas. The dense forest canopy acted as a shield, making it nearly impossible for tracking technology to capture clear images or thermal readings. But what struck the team most was how intentionally these creatures seemed to use their environment. They weren't wandering aimlessly through the wilderness. They were following patterns, traveling along rivers and slipping through the trees in ways that even drones equipped with heat-sensing cameras struggled to track. Every time the team thought they were closing in, the evidence vanished. Footprints that had been cleared just moments before would suddenly disappear. Movement detected on drones would flicker out before any detailed image could be captured. It was almost as if these creatures knew when they were being watched. But how was that possible? That was when the team began asking an even bigger question. What if they weren't the only ones doing the tracking? What if Bigfoot was watching them too? The role of technology and its limitations. The team had an arsenal of cutting-edge technology, thermal cameras, seismic sensors, aerial drones. And yet, it wasn't enough. Sure, they captured fleeting glimpses, a shadow moving between trees, a thermal signature that vanished seconds later, but never anything conclusive. Why? Because the creatures weren't just avoiding detection, they seemed to be anticipating it. Think about that for a second. The drones would pick up movement, and just as the camera closed in, they were gone. Heat signatures would flicker on the screen, but by the time they got to the location, nothing. This wasn't just luck. This was strategy. And that raised an unsettling thought. If Bigfoot has managed to evade modern technology for this long, maybe it's because it knows what we're looking for. The footprints that defy explanation. The footprints discovered in the area were not just large, they were impossible. Each print measured far beyond the size of any known primate, dwarfing even the largest human footprints ever recorded. But what truly set them apart was not just their size, but the stride. The distance between each step suggested something capable of covering incredible distances in a way that defied normal locomotion. These prints did not indicate slow, methodical movement, like that of a bear or a human walking through the forest. Instead, they suggested a creature leaping effortlessly or moving with a speed no human could match. This meant one of two things. Either it was incredibly strong, capable of propelling itself across vast distances in a single step, or it was moving in a way we do not yet understand. And that was only the beginning. Near the tracks, the team discovered something even stranger. Along the rough bark of nearby trees, they found deep claw marks etched high above the ground, far beyond the reach of any known predator in the area. These scratches were not the parallel slashes left by bears or the marks of antlers scraping against wood. They were deliberate, forceful, and disturbingly high up. Then came the most unsettling discovery. Just beyond the footprints and claw marks, the team found a tree, not broken by wind, not gnawed by animals, but twisted clean in half. The trunk had been forcibly bent and snapped, as if something with immense strength had grabbed hold of it and deliberately wrenched it apart. There was no natural explanation for what they were seeing. It was not storm damage, and it was definitely not decayed. Final thoughts. What now? After everything that has been uncovered, the footprints, the massive handprints, the primitive tools, the chilling audio recordings, and even linguistic evidence, one question remains. What happens now? We have physical proof that something exists in the wilderness, something that defies conventional explanation. These creatures aren't just surviving, they are thriving, adapting, and possibly communicating in ways we never imagined. And yet, every time someone gets too close, something stops them. Bryce discovered something monumental, evidence that could have rewritten history. And then, silence. His findings were confiscated. The expedition abruptly shut down, and those involved seemed to vanish from the conversation. So now we have to ask ourselves, are we truly on the verge of discovering an undiscovered species? Or has the discovery already been made and hidden from us? Because at this point, one thing is clear. Someone, somewhere, does not want us to know the truth.